Hi students, welcome to lesson 16, migration, causes, types and consequences. The study of any population is concerned with its size, characteristics, distribution of population and so on. One of the major components beside mortality and fertility is migration, which affects the demographic features of a particular state or society. Migration is not a new phenomenon. From the time immemorial, people used to migrate from one place to another in search of food, employment and so on. In the prehistoric societies, migration was influenced by the climatic conditions, fertility of soil, flora and fauna and so on. In the modern societies, migration is being influenced by better lifestyle, educational facilities, employment opportunities, medical facilities and so on. In this lesson, we will study the concept of migration, its causes, types and consequences of migration. After reading this lesson, the students will be able to define migration, explain the causes of migration, explain various types of migration, explain the consequences of migration. The size of population in a particular state or society depends upon geographical factors, social and economical factors and demographic factors. Among demographic factors, the fundamental elements which determine the population of a particular state or society are fertility, mortality and migration of population. Migration is one of the important demographic variables which influences population distribution. In early history, people used to move in groups in search of areas where the food was abundant. With the invention of agriculture and the birth of civilization resulted in new forms of migration. The movement of people helped in diffusion of culture. However, in the past, the migration was mostly due to inventions, trade and commerce, pilgrims and slaves or prisoners. From the 19th century onwards, free individual migration came into existence. In the year 2019, 27.16 crore global population has migrated from one place to another, which constitute 3.5% of the total world population. India was the leading country of origin of international migrants with 17.5 million people living abroad. Hence, sociologists have shown greater interest to study the causes for migration as well to study the socio-psychological problems associated with it. Definition of migration. Migration is defined as any permanent change in residence. The International Encyclopedia on Population defines migration as geographic mobility that involves a change of usual residence between defined political or statistical areas or between residence areas of different types. According to United Nations Multilingual Demographic Dictionary, migration is defined as a form of geographic mobility or spatial mobility between one geographical unit to another, generally involving a change in residence from place of origin or the place of departure to the place of destination or a place of arrival. According to the International Organization for Migration, migration is defined as movement of a person or a group of persons either across an international border or within a state. We call it as internal migration, encompassing any kind of movement of people, whatever its length, composition and causes. This broad definition covers all forms of migration, whether it's voluntary or forced migration, whether it is internal or international migration, whether it is long-term or short-term migration, with different motives for migration. Migration may be because of political persecution, conflicts, economical problems, environmental degradation, or combination of all these reasons are migration in search of better economical conditions or conditions for survival or well-being of others of the family, or reunification of family irrespective of means used to migrate. Thus, it concludes migration of refugees, displaced persons, economic migrants and persons moving for other purposes, including family reunification. Migration thus means movement from one area to another, involving a change of residence from the usual native area to another area, at least for a consistent period of time. This movement of people from one residence to another is treated by demographers as a component of population change and which leads to change in population composition. A migrant is thus one who changes his permanent residence for a long period of time and crosses political or administrative boundaries. Causes of migration. Migration takes place on account of a number of reasons. Individuals take several factors into account, like the cost of getting to the desired destination, health, circumstances, both at native area or area of residence before migration. The pattern of migration reveals the causes for migration. It must be clear for us that migration is a selective process and the chances of migrating will be greater among young adults than the older. Migration is the outcome of various factors like physical, economical, social, cultural and political factors which tend to influence a society. Now let us discuss physical causes. Climate plays a vital role in human migration. The physical causes like climatic conditions, floods, droughts, famines, earthquakes, volcanic eruption, infertile soil and so on are some of the important causes which lead to migration. In Himalayan regions, migrations take place due to severe cold climate of the region. For example, seasonal or periodic migration takes place in Rajasthan and Maharashtra. Migration is observed due to drought. The second one is economic causes. Most of the people migrate in search of livelihood. People move to places where they can find better opportunities to improve their economical condition. Poverty, unemployment, underemployment and the desire to improve the standards of living for higher incomes are the major economical factors which lead to migration. Some of the chief causes of migration are a high density of population and lack of proper means of livelihood, land for agriculture in either areas, irrigational facilities, mineral and forest resources, transport facilities, employment opportunities in industrialized societies, facilities for trade and commerce are the examples for this. The next cause is socio-cultural cause. Socio-cultural factors also influence the extent of migration. Important among these are the effects of marriage, family system, caste and religion. In India, we mostly find patriarchal families where women after their marriage migrate to husband's house. The custom of marriage, the practice of endogamy and exogamy may result in short distance migration of females. The caste system and joint family system in the traditional societies have not allowed the free migration of people due to the rigidity and close knits of relationship. However, in the modern societies, it is observed that people are migrating to areas where employment opportunities exist. In the modern societies, the joint families are becoming weaker and its control on the individuals is weakening. Nuclear families have paved the way for free individual movement for improving their socio-economical status. Migration also takes place on account of cultural factors. Historical evidence shown that people migrate to various parts of the world to spread their culture and religion. Even today, people migrate from and to India for educational purpose as well to spread their culture and religion. The next one is political causes. Migration is affected by the political upheaval in the country. With the invention of Muslims and during the process of colonization, thousands of Muslims and Britishers have migrated to India. The government policies may or may not be favorable for migration. Some governments, for example, UK, Germany, France, and so on, discouraged immigration, whereas some countries, for example, Denmark, Ireland, and so on, offer incentives to encourage migration. The next cause is psychological cause. The psychological impression of the people is also a cause for migration. People who do not feel secure in a particular country or felt threat may seek asylum in other countries which provide them security. Some people in search of political or religious freedom may migrate to other places. The next cause is transfer in jobs. Many employees, both in public and private sectors, are required to periodically change their place of employment. Now let us discuss the push and pull factors of migration. The idea of push and pull factors of migration was put forward by Ravestein in the year 1889, who tried to analyze migration in England using 1881 census data of England and Wales. He concluded that pull factors were important than push factors. Now let us discuss what are these push factors. Certain factors push people away from the area of origin. Such factors are usually found in rural areas of underdeveloped countries. These factors may include poverty, unemployment, lack of facilities, earthquake zones, cyclone-prone areas, and so on. Some of the factors which push the people away from the areas are decline of a national resource, for example, exhaustion of mines, timber or agricultural resources, pressure on the land, loss of employment due to incompetence, no demand for a particular activity, mechanization or automation of tasks, unemployment and underemployment. Besides this, we also have poverty, physical calamities like droughts, earthquakes, floods, famines and so on, epidemics, oppressive or discriminatory treatment of a section of population because of political, religious or ethnic reasons, starvation, lack of services which may be like medical services, educational facilities and so on, political unrest. All these are the factors, push factors. Now let us discuss about the pull factors. The factors which attract the people to the areas of destination is known as pull factors. These include better employment opportunities, education and medical facilities, lifestyle and so on. The features which pull the people towards other areas are superior employment opportunities, better paid jobs, better educational and training opportunities, preferable environment and living conditions, climate, housing and other community facilities, better chances to access to services, religious and political activities can be carried out safely, quality of life, lure of new or different activities, environments or people such as cultural, intellectual or recreational activities. The above, all the push factors and pull factors constitute both impersonal conditions which may be environmental and mental state of the individual. Thus, migration is the result of subjective response based on the socio-economical condition. Now let us discuss about types of migration. Sociologists, economists, statisticians and geographers have made many attempts to classify different types of migration. Migration is mainly subdivided into two types that can be classified like internal migration and international migration. Internal migration. This type of migration usually takes place within a country. There are many forms of internal migration. However, depending upon the direction in which a migrant moves, internal migration has been classified into four types. They are rural to urban migration. It is the most frequent type of migration taking place in the developing countries, experiencing industrialization, including India. Rural to urban migration is the result of various push factors operating from the rural side and the pull factors operating from the urban side. Simultaneously, the push factors may include natural calamities, lack of employment opportunities, underemployment, modernization of agriculture, size of land holdings and the system of land tenure and so on. On the other side, the growing industrialization in urban areas is creating greater employment opportunities, which is one of the major pull factors. Better educational facilities, improving social and economic status, recreational facilities like theaters, cinemas, clubs and so on are also attracting the individuals from rural areas towards urban societies. Improved transportation and communication facilities have enabled greater cultural diffusion and increased awareness. Rural to urban migration is mostly due to economical backwardness in the rural areas in the developed countries. This migration is due to surplus labor and lack of employment opportunities in rural areas. This migration provides ample scope for upward social mobility. However, it also has undesirable effects which include overcrowding in urban areas, shortage of houses, water and other basic amenities, increase in slum areas and increase in crime rate and so on. Now let us discuss the second type of migration, rural to rural migration. In this type, the migrants move from one rural area to another. There are various reasons for rural to rural migration. Generally, females after their marriage migrate from the parents' house to the in-laws, migration of agro labor from one rural area to another area for the same type of job, due to failure of crops, lack of opportunities for remunerative work, medical facilities are some of the examples of rural to rural migration. This migration results in horizontal social mobility and do not provide any opportunity or do not provide an opportunity for the individuals to move upward in occupational and economical sectors. The third one is urban to urban migration. In this type of migration, individuals migrate from one urban area to another. Individuals move from less favorable parts of the country to more favorable parts. The first reason is basically female migration after marriage. Secondly, the individuals migrate to other urban areas to achieve higher social and occupational mobility. The urban areas with better job opportunities, educational facilities, medical facilities usually attract the people towards urban areas. This type of migration gives scope for both vertical and horizontal social mobility. The fourth type is urban to rural migration. This type of migration takes place from urban areas to rural areas. This type of migration does not take place commonly as the urban areas are well developed and economically well advanced. This type of migration is also termed as reverse flow as it contracts the common tendency to migrate from rural to urban areas. People who fail to adjust in the urban areas or fed up with the busy life of the cities or high crime rate or lack of fresh air and open space or environmental pollution and so on can be the reasons for urban to rural migration. In some cases, individuals after their retirement from jobs may wish to return to their villages in order to look after their agrarian property. Some of the individuals may return to the villages after acquiring new skills and invest their energies and capital in order to develop their native places. Now let us discuss the second type of migration, international migration. If the individual moves from one country to another country, we call it as international migration. When the individual moves from one country to another, he is identified as immigrant by the native country and immigrant those arriving in a country. Hence, the migration at the international level will consist of two main concepts. It may be emigrant and immigrant, my dear friends. The concept of emigration refers to migration of individuals from the mother country to another. For example, when individual migrate from India to United States of America or UK, he is an emigrant for India and the migration is termed as emigration. The concept of immigration takes place when individuals migrate from one country to another. For example, when individuals migrate from India to USA, he is immigrant for USA. Hence, an immigrant is considered in terms of area of destination. International migration may also take place due to both push as well as pull factors. Now let us discuss other types of migration. Based on the space aspect perspective, there are 4 types of migration. They can be classified as intercontinental migration, international migration, interstate migration and local migration. Based on time aspect perspective, there are 2 types of migration. It is long range migration, where people are going to settle permanently in a place after migration, and seasonal or periodic migration, where people are going to return to usual residence after a specific period of time. Based on the causes, migration can be classified into 2 types. There are push factors and pull factors. Based on the number of people migrated, it can be classified into 3 types: large scale migration, moderate scale migration and migration on minor scale. Based on the stability of permanency, migration is classified into 4 types. They are casual or accidental movement of people, which is done in smaller groups for a specific purpose. Second one is semi-permanent. People are going to migrate to a place but in contact with the native people, and permanent migration, my dear friends. The next one is chain migration. In this type, the individual migrates from one place to their new place, and after settling there in a job, he will set up his family and then invites his friends and relatives to that place and invite them to follow him. The next type is individual and collective migration. In this individual migration, the individual all alone migrates from one place to another. In the collective migration, group of individuals or families move from one place to another. Voluntary and forced migration. Voluntary migration takes place when the individuals migrate without any compulsion or force. For example, individuals migrate for educational, employment and for treatment purpose. When individuals are forced to migrate from one place of settlement to another area, then we call it as forced migration. Now let us discuss about the consequences of migration. Migration is not merely reallocation of individuals from one place to another. Migration affects both the space and the individual, which need to be thoroughly studied. The impact is felt both on the origin of individuals or migrants and their destination. Migration may lead to shortage of personnel or brain drain. Migration shows its impact in the following areas. First one is spatial impact. Due to migration, the size and density of population will increase in the urban areas, which may lead to increased demand on infrastructure. At the same time, the rural areas are depopulated, which leads to shortage of manpower and hence results in fields lying waste. It may also have impact on population. Migration affect the features and character of the population, both at source as well as destination area. People's belief system, habits, culture, tradition gets modified. People become more scientific and rational in their outlook. Belief and non-material culture gets slowly declined. Inter-religious marriages or mixed marriages get priority. In most of the developing countries, unskilled and semi-skilled males are more prone to migration than females. Due to the imbalance in sex ratio or scarcity of females, it encourages immorality or bad habits. The next one is social consequences. Migration leads to acculturation and enculturation. This will bring change in values, ideas, beliefs and attitudes of migrant population. Due to acculturation and enculturation, the gap between various cultural groups becomes narrow. Migrants usually face shortage of food, housing facilities. This gives rise to a number of slums with no adequate facilities or inadequate facilities, due to which migrants may be vulnerable to diseases. Due to poor social and economical condition, they may not be able to satisfy basic needs to their family members, and children may not get proper education. The next one is biological consequences. The migrant, unskilled or semi-skilled population suffers from lack of fresh air, open space and changes in diet as well. As the dwellings are not hygiene and well ventilated, it leads to ill health. As the purchasing capacity of the people will be low, they could not spend on food, which decreases their immunity levels and may be prone to health issues or diseases. The next one can be economical consequences. Individuals migrate to other places in order to improve their economical condition. But because of migration, it leads to shortage of manpower in the area of origin. As a skilled human resource is moving to other places, it may lead to brain drain in the country. The nation which is having more immigrants will be more benefited by the skilled employees, which is one of the major causes for economical growth. Now let us conclude. There are several factors like physical, economical, social and cultural, political factors which play a vital role in migration of individuals. The push and pull factors determine migration process both at the international level and internal migration. The development in transport and communication facilities have increased the awareness levels among the individuals, which is also one of the major causes for migration. Better educational, employment and health facilities along with better lifestyle is attracting a lot of people towards urban or industrial societies. With the increased migration to the urban centers, it leads to overpopulation and the demand for houses, employment, health facilities and so on increases. Hence, research on migration needs to be taken to understand the relationship between socio-cultural and demographical variables, and also to understand various problems faced by the migrants as well as by the nations. This helps the government in designing population policies to train the manpower and retain them and utilize them effectively for the betterment of the nation's economy.